Hi everyone, in this video we will solve a pattern problem. So the pattern goes like this. It's shown you in the figure, and you will be given the value of n, the number of lines you have to print. For example, in this case the value of n is 5. So given n, you have to print these 5 lines and the pattern should look something like this, right? So let's see how we can build this kind of a pattern, right? So let me first draw the pattern, right? So it goes like this: 1 2 3 2, then you have 3 4 5 4 3 and so on, right? So in this pattern you need to observe few things, right? So first of all, you're given n equals to 5, which means you need to print 5 lines, right? So you will need a loop that actually goes 5 times. So for the first row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row and so on, right? And let's say n is 3, and we will try to work with n equal to 3, and that can be generalized for any value of n, right? So all right, so this is the first row, second row, third row. Another observation that I'm able to see: in the first line you print one number, in the second line you print 3 numbers, and in the third line you print 5 numbers. So clearly in each line you print 2 into I minus 1 numbers, where I is the line number. So okay, so I is the line number. So in this line I is 3, so you have 2 into 3 minus 1, which is 6 minus 1, 5 numbers. So yeah, okay. Another observation is, in each line you will print certain amount of spaces, right? So if n is 3, in the first line you need 2 spaces, in the next line you need 1 space, and in the third line you need 0 space, which means in every line, so every line has some spaces in the beginning, and number of spaces is nothing but it is n minus I, right? So as you go down, the value of I increases, but the number of spaces decreases. So I increases, spaces decreases, and this is related by this formula n minus I. You can also verify in the line number 1 you have 3 minus 1, 2 spaces, 3 minus 2, 1 space, and 3 minus 3, 0 spaces here. Then another observation is, each line, right? Each line, the first number is I, okay? So each line, the value of number begins with I. So you have 1 here, you have 2 here, you have 3 here. And another observation is, the value of I is incremented I number of times. So you increment the value of I 1 time, you increment the value of I 2 times, or you print 3 numbers which are in increasing order. So you have I numbers which are in the increasing order. Then you have I minus 1 numbers which are in the decreasing order, right? So these numbers decrease, and in total it makes 2I minus 1 numbers, right? And this particular number, basically this is 1 less than the last number, okay? So when you transition from I numbers to I minus 1 numbers, this number that is the starting number is 1 less than the last number. So the 2 is less than 3, right? Last number that you have printed, right? So using these observations we can write the code. So let us first try to write a loop for the rows, okay? And then we will write a loop for the spaces, and then we will write a loop for the increasing numbers, and then we will write a loop for the decreasing numbers, and followed by a new line character, right? So this is how I'm going to break the problem. So I'm breaking the problem into 4 main components, right? So one is my I have to iterate over rows, then I have to print spaces, then I have to print increasing numbers, then I have to print decreasing numbers, followed by a new line character, right? Okay, so let's see. So yeah, firstly I will input n, so n is given to me now, and then I will use a loop for my rows. So for int I equals to 1, I less than equal to n, I plus plus, that makes my the loop for the rows, right? So loop for rows 1 to n. That's it. Then I need to write a loop for spaces. In each row I will have certain spaces. So for int space equals to 1, space less than equals to n minus I, space plus plus, and every time I'm going to see out one space. That's it. Then I need to write a loop for my increasing numbers. And remember, the value of increasing number starts with the value of row number. So the value is going to be I, and how many times I'm going to increase my number. So clearly I have I numbers which are in the increasing order, right? So I need a loop which runs I number of times. So for number count, I can say for count equals to 1. So I'm going to count how many numbers I have printed in the increasing order. For count equals to 1, count less than equals to I, count plus plus. And every time I'm going to say see out my value, and since the numbers are in the increasing order, I will say increase the value by 1. So value equals to value plus 1, right? And the fourth component is now decreasing numbers. So to get the value of decreasing numbers, so what is going to happen, let's talk about the third row, right? In the third row you say the starting value is 3, you go to 4, you print 4, you go to 5, you print 5, and you update the value to be 6. So although this 6 is not printed, but this value will exist in the memory, right? So this persists in the memory as 6. From 6 you need to generate the value 4. So effectively, instead of subtracting 1, you have to subtract 2 out of it, right? Because when you see out 5, this makes the value as 6. So to get the decreasing numbers correctly, you have to say value equals to value minus 2. This is basically the initialization, right? Then you can say for int count equals to 1, count less than equal to I minus 1, count plus plus. So the number of decreasing numbers that you have to print is going to be I minus 1. So see out val and val equal to val minus 1, right? So see, the count is increasing because you're counting how many numbers you have printed, but the value that you are actually printing is going to decrease. And finally you have to print a new line. So see out new line, or you can give handle, right? That's it. So let's build our program now, and we have something. So let's comment this thing because this can't be executed. So build is finished, and let's run our code, right? So see all the components, you iterate over all the rows, and also take care of indentation, right? So anything that goes inside another block should have a proper indentation, because this improves the readability of the code, and it also makes easier for you to debug your code, right? So let's run this /, and let me give n equal to 5, and this is exactly the same pattern that we wanted to print. You can try for n equals to 7 and you will get the pattern, right? And for n equals to 3, this is the pattern, right? So alright guys, see you in the next video.